Halo, dobro večer svima. Da li nas čujete? Može li samo neko da mi potvrdi da li nas čujete dobro na chatu? Ok, mislim da se čujemo. Da, čujem. Ok, super. Dobro večer. Moje ime je Marin Rađenović. Ja sam lider AWS user grupe zajedno sa gospodinom Draganom Čabarkapom. A večeras nam gostuje Johannes. Johannes je moj kolega inače iz Sonija, mi smo dugo radili zajedno. I on će večeras da nam priča o iskustvima koje oni imaju u njegovoj firmi sa serverlessom. Naravno, pitanja možete postavljati na YouTube chatu ili na našem AWS kanalu. So, actually, inače danas ćemo pričati samo na engleskom, tako da se ja od ovog momenta prebacujem na engleski i uključujem Johannesa u call. Johannes, hello, good evening. I just said you are my colleague from Sony. We have worked a few years together. Yeah. Yeah, true. Okay, how are things in Sweden? What's up? Yeah, well, it's Sweden. It's Sweden. It has to be cold. Imagine if it was cold at our place in Montenegro here. Okay. Yeah, let me see how much people gather. There are 7 people currently. Let's wait a little bit. So let's wait around 5 minutes, and maybe even less, maybe 3 minutes. I guess people will gather by then. Yeah. Just a second. I'm gonna play some music before we start, so enjoy listening my music. Okay, let me check. Johannes, can you say something, please?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Can somebody acknowledge that you're hearing him?
So yeah, let's see if this works.
Yeah, there is a delay, so basically we're gonna wait.
All right.
Okay, perfect. We just got confirmation. Okay.
Awesome.
So good. We have quite a decent number of people right now, so let me put you on.
Yeah, all right. Then I'll start sharing my screen.
Yes.
Yeah. Present here. Oh, it can only be your entire screen, so that's... see where that one ends up. So which screen do you guys see?
We see screen where both me and you are on, so I'm not sure if that's the one.
No, but that works. Let me
Okay.
just move you out of the way.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. All right. So this is a lesson about how we did our continuous integration and continuous deployment within our project. And we thought we have done a pretty good job, but looking back, we weren't even close. So I'm going to go for a bit of lessons learned about it. So I have been working with AWS since 2014. Me and Marin, we met at Sony, and we have been working a bit together since then. And then I've been a consultant within a very large Swedish furniture company. And within the last project that started
we are not
in
saying which one is that.
Yeah. And within that project in 2017, we were going to take one of these an application that was built as an enterprise application, and we were tasked with putting it on the cloud. And this was written in something called IBM's Mobile First. Now, Mobile First is, as IBM will tell you, the ultimate solution for building an API for a mobile app. But that's just IBM that will tell you that. Everyone else will tell you that it's garbage. But it was a quite old version of their platform, and that actually meant blocking JavaScript code. So all of the network cards that were going outside were actually blocking each other, which is a great way to degrade performance. Of course, you would think that one of these old enterprise tools have a good support for JSON, that is, it's built in. But it was built in sort of, because the JSON was created through XSL files. So there was a quite big, boring product. And there's a separate team that is doing all of the operations, because we can't possibly get access to it, because imagine the damage we could do in it. So it was this traditional enterprise. And there were stories of requesting logs could take days because you have to raise a support ticket and so on. So the goal was simple. Let's throw away mobile first and let's put it on the cloud and make it modern. That's what we did. So we started to migrate towards AWS. We started with just re-implementing all of the APIs within Node. We did a quite simple architecture for it. Now we use Lambda API Gateway, as you guys know. We use DynamoDB and we use S3 for storage, and we built this using AWS SAM. This was back in 2017 when SAM was really, really brand new. SAM at that point, it wasn't matured. We filed tons of issues with AWS. I think if you go into the SAM repository on GitHub and search for my name, you will see quite a few issues and even a pull request or two. But before we actually started to work on this, the first thing we did was all right, we're not going to build anything and then logging into an account and manually deploying CloudFormation stacks and doing things. That's out of the question. So the first thing we did was actually to start with our CI/CD. And we wanted to be fully automated. We want to have the best CI/CD setup we could have. We didn't want the old way of working where we sent over this big package of code that someone else deployed. No, everything should be automatic. And one thing we did was to use one AWS account per big environment. The company that we were on had this traditional setup that I think most of you are quite familiar with, right? You have a dev account or you have a dev environment. You have a pre-production or release or staging environment, and you have your production environment. And this is a quite common setup. So we thought, all right, let's do that. So we set up a code pipeline. The code pipeline was in CloudFormation. So we manually went into the account and we just deployed that one stack with that CloudFormation with all of the infrastructure and so on. And then we had it mapped to specific branches. So if we push to dev, we deploy to dev. If we push to PPE, we deploy to PPE. And if we push to production, we deploy to production and so on. And we use code build to package the templates. And this is basically the first lesson that we have. If you can't automate it, don't do it. And we actually went quite far with this. And make sure that everything was automated. And of course, you'd automate things that is your service, right? You put your DynamoDB tables in your CloudFormation files, you put your Lambda functions, your API gateway, the S3 bucket you are using. But it goes a bit further than that. If you have a code pipeline, you put it in CloudFormation. If you have set up for Route 53 or for your certificates, you put them in the CloudFormation. If you have cross-account access force, you put them in CloudFormation and so on. If you need edit rights within your AWS account, your automation has basically failed. That's what we were trying to go at. We ended up with a quite nice way of working. We just had some code. We could push it to Garrett. We could submit it. It was we get some input on it. We improve it. We submit it. It's deployed on dev, and that's nice. Then after a while, we simply merge dev to our staging environment. And that's automated. We have an automated task that does it, and we just update staging with it. And we have a weekly job that just automated the merge from staging to our production environment. That the testers could then basically mark as well. This change that you have here, well, staging is fine, so we think that you can merge. We thought that this was a pretty good continuous deployment process, but we were quite wrong with this. This is actually a quite horrible process. And the main lesson for that is actually cat that works as pets. And you might have heard about this saying, especially when it comes to cloud computing. Imagine you having a server in your basement, right? That server is quite important. You need to take care of that server. You need to patch it, right? That's what's nice with the cloud. You don't have to worry about patching. You can just bring up a new server. And we like auto-scaling groups because if something breaks, we just throw it away. We don't have to patch it and so on. And that's what we want. But this applies to everything, right? And if you have three main environments, you have three environments that you always are taking care of. And this was the main thing that we actually noticed, that we got things into develop that wasn't really fully ready. And this means that change can't move forward. It's basically stuck there. And it could block features. And production is a very important environment, right? Pre-production is equally important because it's that environment that we gain trust for what we will actually push to production works. And that also means that dev is equally important. But we suddenly had a quite large delta towards production. We could have weeks of changes in develop that wasn't in prod. Then we're not really continuously integrating towards production. We're continuously integrating towards a lot of other changes that are far from being ready, that are on different timelines. And it also gives this, and it also gives the opportunity to push a bit of sloppy code, because you're only pushing it to dev. This can be fixed later. And you could argue on the last point that no, we are developers, we don't do that. Well, nobody here became a developer because we like hard manual labor. We became developers because we are lazy. And that means that it shouldn't be easy to do things sloppy. It shouldn't be easy to be sloppy. You shouldn't have a process that allows you to be sloppy because you're a lazy bastard. So what we did was basically, kill your darlings. Remove all of their environments besides production. So we don't have any development. We don't have any shared development environment. Nor do we have any shared nor do we have any shared staging either. Because each change that goes directly to prod. Once you submit, you will deploy this towards production, an environment where we have around 20 to 40 million requests per day. This is a big production workload with the e-commerce team. It can't go down, but yet every change that we submit, it goes directly to production. And we managed to get here because instead of having this one development environment and this one pre-production environment, every change that we are actually doing now gets its own environment. So we are really embrace this captive versus pets on the environment level as well. We throw up maybe 10 environments per day that is based on master. It is a production environment with your change on it, which makes it really easy to actually test. And that allows us to have a very high cadence. So yeah, and your environment is always kept up to date, and then it's automatically killed. So I think today we have maybe created around 15 environments, and we have had 2, and we have merged 3 things since it being a Friday. So yeah, I think we have 13 environments. We have 13 dev environments more today. So this was basically what we had. We had this really important development environment, and it's really important environment for staging. What we have now is just a bunch of them, and this really means that we have improved the continuous deployment process quite a lot, because we don't have any of these things where we bundle things together. We don't have any of these check marks. We can work on one change only and just push it. And this is also a good way to get to know how bad the console is within AWS. Have you ever tried browsing the Lambda console when you have 5,200 functions? You don't do it. If you want to browse the CloudWatch logs groups when you have, the log group still stays, you can't really do that either. So the console becomes a bit cluttered. And I also noted that we still have to raise the limit of our code
I'm sorry.
That haven't happened before.
Sorry to interrupt you, but not much companies on Earth have 5,231 lambdas running.
I think the production account might only have 200, so something like that.
Okay.
Or maybe 150. It depends. I'm not quite sure. That's an estimate. But these are for multiple environments. I think this is maybe around 30 to 50 environments, something around that ballpark. And then it's all of the auxiliary functions that keeps the account in check. Yeah. So this is basically our Gerrit instance. As you can see here, the green boxes here, that means that this change it is tested, all of the unit tests has passed, the integration test has passed, and you have an environment, which means that we also have managed to ensure that we can deploy your templates and deploy the pipeline and so on. The setup for this is actually that we create the pipeline and then we push the code. So one environment for us is not only the API gateways and the lambda functions and the dynamo tables and so on. It's actually the pipeline itself. So when you push, you're not only updating the code that is running or the API gateway or the resource that you use. You are also updating all of the infrastructure at the same time that deploys your code. And this is really key to get to a state where you don't only automate your code and your templates, but you also make sure that you can automate the automation itself. So what these jobs are actually a job that just pulls everything. It starts with just deploying or updating the pipeline, and then it just triggers it. And I think the main cost we have on our dev account, it's not actually the lambda functions or the few. It's actually code build. I think that is the main development cost, because we have so many different environments with code build instances that are packaging testing. Yeah. And lesson number 3 that you really learn when you have a lot of requests is to always log in JSON. And this is a bit of a no-brainer as well, but there are some really nice things that you can do with it once you do it, because CloudWatch logs and insight, those are made for JSON. And when you log in JSON, always log easy to follow objects. And because what you can do then is to use log filters to create your custom metrics, create your custom alarms. We had an issue within our production environment a while back that was due to a misconfiguration on our side. And what we have now is actually a log filter in place that scans the logs, catch that specific error that is due to a misconfiguration on our side, and then sends it to the Slack. So it really enables you to to create custom metrics for the smallest of things. So what we do within our code, if we just take the logging aspect of it. So we have our own small logging library. So we always make sure that we log things that are searchable. In the message, for instance, we don't add did stuff 42. We just say, a clear sentence. What did we do? That is easy to search on, and so on. And then the stuff 42 is just a simple variable. And we always wrap the lambda itself. We just take the promise and make sure it extracts some data from the events and add something to the logs. So if this were to run within at us, this would yield a log that looks something around this. So we have a start message that is the pop, it's the method, and we log other things as well, as the status codes, the size of the body, the time it took for certain operations. For every outbound call we do, we have a metrics that we log. And this really allows us to put detailed log metrics on very specific things using filters. And it also makes the searching a lot easier. And you see here we have this meta tag that is the market and so on. So find a way to standardize your logging in a good way. Winston has some great things that can be used as well. But our logger framework, I think that's around 100 lines of code, and the only thing it does is that it extracts some info from the events, and it looks on an environment variable whether or not it should actually print it. And this has increased the observability of the lambdas quite a bit, allowed us to respond to errors quite quickly and find them. And these are the things we actually put within our CloudFormation template. We try to avoid putting alarms manually as well. So we try to use metrics filters to actually catch things, and that's the nice thing if you're actually logging with JSON. What this one here will do is that it will actually create a new metric that are called fields are missing. That will count how many times that you get a type error, and where error.missing field is not an empty string. And doing this for issues that you find that you notice that if we do a misconfiguration like this, or if this service breaks like this, we can create custom alarms for each thing, and you have them in CloudFormation as well. So if you have to set up your service in another region, or if your accounts get compromised, you have to deploy it again. Things like your metrics and your alarms, those shouldn't be manual things that you have to set up. So, in a few closing remarks, you automate everything. You even automate the automation. A good way to actually get to this step, don't sign into the console with an admin user. Sign into the console with a read-only access user. That is for security reasons, but also if you need to change things in the production account, or if you need to change things in your staging account or something like that, why are you doing that manually? It should be a bit of a hassle to have to do something manually, right? It's a failure of your automation. And finally, cattle versus pets. I mean, this goes for everything. And this is basically what automation gives you. Rather than having one big dev environment, you have multiple. And this is also a bit when you are working with continuous integration. Try to find a way to work on your master branch. Skip release branches, skip feature branches. I mean, work on the master branch, or create a feature branch, rebase it towards master all the time, but integrate towards master, and have as little as delta as possible. All right, that was actually it. I haven't really timed this speech, and it's the first real speech as well in some time. So.
Oh, it was a great speech.
Marin, I can't hear it.
Yep, true.
Yeah.
I was on mute. Sorry, it was a great speech. Thank you very much. But I have one question. I mean,
yeah,
you
please.
have a really interesting way how pretty much everything is disposable. We have seen that EC2 instances is something that is disposable. Lambdas also. Now the whole environments are basically disposable. You provision it, you use it just to test if your thing works or not, and then you just dump it.
Yep.
And that's very interesting approach. But what about the system that you depend on? Let's say if you have some system from where you consume information, which might be on-prem or wherever, which do not have that flexibility to.
No, and we do go to those systems, but we only test in production. I mean, our test environments uses the other team's production systems, so we are always within production. We are a bit privileged to be able to do so because we don't really have that much state. We do a backend for the app itself. What we do is basically just to consolidate all of the APIs. We have a bit of state, but we don't have any crucial state. And I think that's the real challenge when you have this. If you have state that you have to keep, if you have a Cognito user pool, or if you have a database that you have to migrate, well, you can come to those places as well, but you should separate the database and the backend in a good way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can deploy the database separately, and you or you automate your import scripts that basically imports a test copy or a production copy or something like that. You could use AWS backup to it,
Right.
but we rely on a lot of scripting to actually get this up and running. So the pipelines are deployed with scripts, and in that you could also integrate within different push backups or push database migrations and so on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Makes sense. Um, does anybody else have some questions? Let's wait. Maybe somebody will come up with some question. Okay, this really looks interesting. I mean, uh, I wanted to ask you, did you ever consider having a multi-account approach? But I'm not sure if this is really worthwhile question here,
Yeah,
because
I think that's a good question actually.
yeah.
And yeah, we have in total 4 accounts. We
Okay.
have the old staging account, we have the production account, the dev account, and the account where we have the Garrett and Jenkins instance and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Since the app team already had a Garrett instance and a Jenkins instance, we have just piggybacked on that one. We are talking about changing that one.
Mm-hmm.
But having all of the dev environments on a separate dev account and the PPE at a different account and production at a different account is great because it it's a good boundary in terms of security,
Mm-hmm.
but also it allows you to see how much does your production environment cost and how much does your
Mm-hmm.
dev environment cost and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And having different accounts also, and also putting all of your tooling in one different account, it forces you to get the cross account policies right from the very beginning.
Okay.
As well.
Okay.
Mm.
Makes sense. I mean, when you have this approach of testing against the systems, and let's say you really need to manage this state, how would you do it? And you still want to keep this approach?
For depends a bit on which state what kind of state you have, right? If it's just an S3 bucket with some data, it's quite easy to just deploy a new S3 bucket and sync over a test copy. If it's RDS, those are a bit messy to automate in a good way, especially if you have database migrations, right?
Yeah.
Because you not only need to test that you can migrate up, depending on how you do rollbacks, you need to make sure that you can migrate down as well. And having those tests in a good way is quite hard. But I have seen some nice examples where people upload a zip file to S3 that contains all of the different migration scripts, and then just call a lambda, migrate until point X, for instance. And then that lambda connects to your RDS instance, it runs all of the migration scripts, and you're finished, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, state always makes things messier, and it's good if you could separate that into a specific part of the deployment, depending on, because you might want to be able to switch your backend or having a standby backend that uses the same state as you have, right? If you have a fallback environment, if your deployment goes bad, for instance. We actually have 2 production environments up and running all the time. One production environment is just as a fallback environment in case something bad would happen. And we are using Akamai as a CDN, and we can quickly go into Akamai and press the button, use the fallback instead.
Okay. Okay. Did you ever think that maybe when you have like that kind of state management, that you might use, let's say, hexagonal architecture on your lambdas and basically improvise that part where you're communicating with that service, even using another AWS service, but just wrap that adapter so that basically it doesn't connect to the real database, but actually it connects to the
to a mock service.
Mock service, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually did that for integration testing a while. Before we had this approach, we still needed this verified flag in Jenkins that tells us that everything is good to submit from a more unit test perspective. We needed to test that the deployment worked. But then we actually first deployed an Express server on Lambda that was just basically a mock server. And we ran integration tests towards our environment. So those things are, if you can separate it, so you basically go to a mock database or a mock service over HTTP or over the database protocol you're using, I think that could be a good way. But I would probably avoid doing a code change that I use basically in-memory mock in the code. I would probably avoid that because I like for my production code to be as non-configurable in terms of what it can do as possible, right? I want to be able to configure timeout and so on, but I want to reduce the complexity of the different paths in it as much as possible.
Yeah, it does really make sense because having a hexagonal architecture in that way that you're using that basically for testing is quite an overhead that you would need to explain your management. Why do you need that much time to code just tests? I mean, this is a considerable amount of time that you need to basically do when you want that kind of reliability in your application.
I think that
but it's a way.
I think that any deployment, what you're looking at is a workflow, right? From when you start coding to when it's in production, and that should be as streamlined as possible. So that's come down to minimizing deltas, making it as easy as possible. And we have had issues where we have had instances where we have pushed things to production that has caused the sales to drop quite a lot, actually. But due to monitoring, due to other things, we have been able to catch it. And because it's so easy to send things to production, it's also very easy to send a fix there.
Yeah, true, makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, this is really a liberal approach that you are having towards production, but not everybody is basically on for it. What I have faced so far is more like a conservative approach to production environment. But still, this is one very interesting concept, and I'm sure that I would try at some point.
But if you find yourself when you're sitting with multiple environments, someone comes and say, we have this nasty bug, this doesn't work. You know, the first question you ask is, in which environment? You know, and then they say PPE or the staging, and then you have to figure out, all right, what the fuck is staging running right now? I have no clue. And then you have to troubleshoot that, right? If you say to it that an environment is not working for this change, well, I know this change is production plus my change. That's the environment. So I can quite easily say, oh crap, we have this in production as well, or good, this is only within this small change.
Yeah. True. You're more flexible in both ways. I mean, even to damage, but even to fix. That's an interesting approach, definitely. So, okay, you said that you had quite a big disaster. I mean, how frequent are those kinds of disasters? How much you really have problems when you deploy your code?
problems when it comes to deploying bugs. Not very often. I think since we started working like this in last December, I think we have had one issue that caused multiple markets to be in trouble, and one issue that just caused one small market to be in trouble. So I think we have done good from that perspective. Then again, as we are at the very top layer of IKEA or of that large Swedish company,
Yeah.
and
We
we're
don't
using
know
all
which
of
one
all of these downstream systems, it's very hard to actually, we are quite stable in that whole chain. And the thing is, we have millions of incoming calls per day from the app.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the beauty of, and production and environment also carefree.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing we notice when you have a lot of traffic is you might want to look into concurrent executions within lambda.
Okay.
Since by default, I think you have like 1,000. But if you start seeing throttling spikes, you can just simply call a support ticket to AWS to ask them to increase it.
Yeah.
And the other thing you should take a bit care of as well is if you're running with this approach, you really want to separate the production account. Because each account has a non-negotiable limit per region for how many API gateway requests you can have.
Okay.
That can't be increased. The way that one is actually calculated is that I think it is 1,000 per second per region, and 1,000 requests per second is still quite a lot. I mean, that's a lot of traffic actually. Or it's not 1,000 per second, but it's 1,000 concurrent requests, right?
Yeah, 1,000 concurrent, right?
Exactly. So if you have 1,000 requests and each request takes exactly 1 second, then you have 1,000 per second.
Yeah.
But most APIs are faster than that. But the way that limit is calculated, it's taking every API gateway within that region, and it gets that quota equally. So if you have your account where you have a production stack with all of your production API gateways, and then you have 100 test API gateways, well, that means that each API gateway has a throttling of 100 concurrent requests per second.
Yeah, which is not much.
Which is not much if you are very big.
Yeah.
So that's something to take into consideration. You have a lot of limits on all of these purely managed services, like Lambda, like API gateway, where you don't specify the actual provision. You have a lot of limitations. So that's why just having one dedicated region or even one dedicated account for production is a really good idea. Since there are certain limits that are on an account level and not on a regional level. Say, for instance, if you have API gateways with custom domains and those are set to global, you can only have 60. Period. Yeah. And that's global.
Yeah.
If you have regional, I think you still have a fixed limit. I think that's the next limit that will be painful for us to reach when we have too many test environments up. But I think that's around 120. And let's say that we have 60 environments up right now. I think we're good.
But let me ask you, I mean, you said you have so many concurrent environments running.
Yeah.
Don't you, I mean, when you test one and you make sure that it works, do you leave it or do you dump it or delete the stack?
Well, that's done by automation, of course. Once you submit the change, the stack is automatically killed. So we don't have to care about keeping them. We do have some jobs on Jenkins that we can run to create a very specific stack. If we wanted to try out a commit that was done 20 days ago, we can just fire up a job within Jenkins. And that's also a really good thing to keep in mind when you are automating everything. Let's say that for this release right now, we are deploying some new CloudFormation templates that are quite auxiliary. We are setting up some cross-account roles. So we are setting up something that is a one-off, right? Or we're doing a one-off configuration. Well, put that in a script, and if you're using GitHub Actions, create an action. If you're using Jenkins, create a Jenkins file and a Jenkins job. So if you're sick, or if you do have to run the same task 2 weeks later because of something you didn't thought of, or your account gets compromised and you have to switch account, you have that Jenkins job. You just run that again. So even small one-off things, automate them and put them in a runnable environment where you can trigger them if you need to. Think of it as a fire drill on a boat, right? You're quite happy that the crew on the boat and the crew on the airplane, they have fire drills and crash drills, so they know what to do. If your account would get compromised, or someone just rage quit and locks you out of the account, and you have a brand new account, how quick can you set up everything to production specs, including all of those small configuration things, right? If you have automation for everything is in small jobs, easy to find place, like a tab in Jenkins or a bunch of GitHub actions. You have everything. You can set it up quite quickly. Hopefully.
Yeah.
But do those drills and maybe even time to time rotate your AWS accounts. That's for the fun of it.
Okay, how quickly did you migrate to this approach from the regular one that you had before?
You mean from the old IBM solution?
Yes, exactly. From the old IBM solution, or basically to the, let's say you migrated from the IBM old solution, but then you had what you said, pre-prod, prod, and dev.
All right.
And how did you move from that to this?
Yeah, so moving from the old CI/CD setup we had, that was I think we took a couple of days in the team, and we said that from this day on we start working on the master branch. We just kill the developer and other branch, and then a while later we simply went to, and then we had a 1 or 2 day period when we couldn't automatically push the prod because we were working with these scripts. But I think it took us from when we started working with it until it was working smoothly, because once you do these things, you will iron out some bugs and some issues. Let's say it took a week, perhaps.
A week?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Well, not everyone working in a week, but maybe 1 or 2 days until we could work with it, and maybe a couple of days to find out some small deployment issues, small bugs, and so on.
Okay.
But that was mainly that this Jenkins job doesn't run in this circumstance and so on. So it wasn't really. It was that the automation crashed a few times.
Okay, from what we have seen of those 5,000 lambdas on development environment, how much of them are actually, let's say, one stack? I mean, how big is your application? How many lambdas does it have to run?
Since API is quite big and we are using SAM, SAM like to create a lot of resources. We don't use API definitions.
Okay.
That means that you will find a time when CloudFormation starts complaining that your CloudFormation template has too many resources. So what in our code pipeline, we basically start with deploying a support stack that contains common things like API gateway authorizers and so on. And then we have a step that deploys all of the API gateway stacks. And I think our environment now has maybe 4 to 5 API gateways. And at the end of that, we deploy our domain stack, and that's just creating a custom domain and tying it all together. So I think as one deployment for us is a configuration stack, it's a pipeline stack, it's a support stack, it's a bunch of API gateway stacks, and then a domain stack. So I think, yeah, it's each deployment has maybe 8 CloudFormation stacks, perhaps.
Okay. Okay. Apart from zebra, what's that animal nearby zebra? What is it?
I think it has two zebras.
It's 2 zebras. Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering what is that whole video. Couldn't realize it. Is it a bird or is it something else? But okay. Is it?
Yeah.
It's just a zebra turned from the back.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Anybody? Any questions for Johannes? There is a lag, so we are gonna need to wait a little bit till we get
All
there.
right. I think your video has frozen.
Yeah? Don't tell me that.
By the way, on these user meetups, isn't there normally free beers and so on? Free food?
Depends. At some point we did have free food, but to be honest, we had just maybe 2 or 3 real meetups, and then
All right.
Corona struck us. We started basically ending of 2019. So I think that on 12th of December we are gonna be celebrating our first birthday.
Yeah, because you started this right at around the reinvent, right?
Yeah. Pretty much after the reinvent. Yeah.
This is the first time in 4 years or in 5 years that I'm not going, actually.
Yeah.
Since it's cancelled.
Yeah. Well, you will go, but it's gonna be virtual.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, really enjoying the time difference there.
Yeah, 9 hours would be really crushing. 9
they
hours.
released the sessions now, so you can actually sign up right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do they have really sign-ups now? I mean, do they have restrictions?
I'm not sure. They just post this schedule right now. So I'm guessing you could sign into reinvent and start booking your sessions. And maybe it's easier to, get the virtual seat than it was getting a physical seat at some of those sessions.
Yeah, yeah, probably, hopefully. I mean, I don't plan really to watch them when they happen. I'm gonna watch them next day for sure. Not really hesitant to wake up in the middle of night. Last time I really had issues with waking up in the middle of nights and being sleepy in the middle of the day. So not really planning for that this time when I'm here. Yeah. Okay. So if there is no more questions, we can say goodbye to the crowd. Thank you very much, everybody, that you attended.
Yeah, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for presenting us this great presentation and this wonderful approach. Yeah. Okay. Goodbye and see you on our next meetup. Hopefully, probably after reinvent. I'm not saying. Maybe we're gonna have one more in December, but we'll see. But in case we don't have anything before New Year, we're gonna see each other probably in January somewhere or so. Thank you and goodbye and have a good night. Bye bye.
Yeah. Cheers.